Hi everyone. So I'm here today with a list of the 10 books that absolutely changed me as a person throughout my entire life as a reader. And I hope that you enjoy it. Let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go in order of how I actually read these books in my life because it will make more sense that way. The first book is Beaches by Iris Rainier Dart. I read it in fourth grade. Yes, you heard that correctly. And I was a young fourth grader. I was like 8, turning 9. My mom was not that familiar with Kidlit. Not her fault, just like wasn't a thing that was on her radar. And so she really didn't know what to give me. I was sort of an advanced reader, as probably many of you who are following me are, were. So she used like the New York Times bestseller list, and the rest is history. It's probably not the greatest book ever written. I don't know because I haven't read it since then. I don't really remember, but I do know that it lodged itself in my heart. I mean, I was only 9. It showed me that reading could be exciting, devastating, funny, inspiring, all those things at once. And like, I wanted to be Bette Midler in that movie. Next up is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. That one I read in 8th grade, as probably many of you did. And it was the first thing I ever read for school that I was like shocked because it was so good. You know, things you read for school are sometimes like, eh. But I was like, wow, I couldn't believe something we were assigned was that good. And if you watched my best book to movie adaptations video, you will know that I love that movie, and that movie is probably in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. My husband is a middle school teacher, and some years he does that book with his kids. And while he's doing that, I feel like he and I both walk around the house going, "Oh, Atticus." So good. All right, next would be Jane Eyre. I read that as summer reading going into 10th grade. So even though it was assigned for school, I read it like by myself in the summertime. And it was the first novel to show me that like classic books like that were written with like a kind of an old-fashioned voice could be extremely gripping. I couldn't put it down, and I have read it many times since. You know, I kind of love that they've never really made a good film or TV version of it. You just can't. It's beyond, it transcends. It's too good. It's just amazing. If you gave my love of morally gray, grumpy MMCs a 23andMe style DNA test, they would all trace back to Mr. Rochester. Next up is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Again, I read this on my own, but I read it in college. So I can't really remember the plot. I kind of feel like that book, the plot isn't like super important. If you can keep all the Aurelianos straight, it is an awesome epic book. Like, I still retain the feelings that that book gave me. And I remember how sad I was when it was over because I really felt like part of that family. Next up is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I read this on the recommendation of a friend whose opinions I really, really trusted. Shout out to Megan. Um, this book is everything. It's got everything. And at the length that it is, it like had better. You know what I'm saying? It is very long. The epicness though kind of feels like part of the journey. Um, there's a sense of like pride for sticking to that journey that you kind of get. And again, I was super devastated when it was over. I felt like I lived in that novel for so long, and it is truly amazing. Okay, next up is a cheat, because I'm going to do 3 in 1. There's a reason. Next up is Pride and Prejudice, Northanger Abbey, and Persuasion, all by Jane Austen. And I'm cheating because A, I can't pick just one Jane Austen. That's not fair to me. I think these 3 books show how Jane Austen both grew on me and grew with me over the years. So I read Pride and Prejudice first. I read that on my own, but in college, because you know I'd heard so much about it, and obviously it's great. I loved it. I mean, hello OG enemies to lovers. Hello OG grumpy sunshine. Hello slow burn. Hello tension. Hello best FMC of all time. Fight me. But then I branched out, and I really did love all of the books, but Northanger Abbey sticks out to me as the one that showed me like how funny Jane Austen actually is. It is really such a fun book. I actually read The Mysteries of Udolpho in tandem while I was reading it, which is the novel that Catherine Morland is so obsessed with throughout. And it just kind of made me feel like I was living in her head. And also the fact that we keep being reminded of how like ordinary and non-heroic Catherine is just kind of made her so relatable, and I just will forever love that book. It's just an utter delight. And finally, I think Persuasion is the most mature Jane Austen book, and I read it later in life, which kind of is appropriate. It just kind of feels like the cherry on the top of my Jane journey. The feelings that Anne has in this book are feelings that every single person has probably had. It's so relatable. It's like Pine City. But that letter that he writes to her at the end, not only is it chef's kiss, but in my heart, I feel like it makes up for every heartbreak I've ever had. Like, it's so good. That letter. Just read that letter. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. All right, next up is No Exit by Jean-Paul Sartre. This is the beginning of my love of existentialism. I know people always say that that book is about hell as other people, but the writing of that book is heaven. I can't think of a better book, especially one that is literally just three people talking the whole time, that like better demonstrates what it's like to be human. It's great, and it's not that long. I fully recommend it. For the next one, I'm going to cheat again because I'm going to do two Toni Morrisons, Paradise and Sula. I think those books portray some of the most interesting, strong, well-developed female characters ever. I know everyone loves The Bluest Eye and Beloved, and of course, those are fantastic. I mean, they definitely are. Paradise and Sula are both about sisterhood and really just challenged me and changed me at my core. It altered my perceptions forever on race, feminism, relationships, everything. They are brilliant. If you have never read them, especially if you're a woman, do yourself a favor. They're really special. Next up is A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court by Mark Twain. These are all over the place, I told you. I read this. I did an independent study in college on Arthurian legend, and I just fell in love with it. And this book in particular, I love it because it's hilariously funny, but it's also so ominously dark and sad. It just is an incredible feat because it not only super accurately portrays like medieval culture, but it is a think piece about Mark Twain's modern era, but kind of any modern era. Mark Twain is the man for a reason. That is an amazing book. The last book on the list, I know I said I wasn't going in order of how much I like these books, but the last one is my favorite book of all time. And I'm not going to say too much about it. I'm just going to tell you the name, The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. That is the only book that I got to the end, finished it, and literally turned back to the beginning and just read it again. I have never read a book that has done what that book did to me. To me, it's the perfect book. There's just read it. It's amazing. Everything about it is perfection. The prose, the setting, the structure, the characters, the plot. Okay, and that's the look. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Bye.